Project Hail Mary has arrived in theatres with early limited screenings, and after seeing the film, I think it's one of the most ambitious sci-fi releases in recent time. It confidently embraces both the spectacle and the intimacy of Andy Weir's book, and I think it will go down as one of the better sci-fi blockbusters to come out this year. Before I get into my breakdown though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my videos on the latest releases like the Project Hail Mary movie, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my breakdown of the Project Hail Mary movie. So at its core, Project Hail Mary is a story about a man alone in the void, physically, emotionally, and morally. We open the film with Ryan Gosling's Ryland Grace regaining consciousness in a medical pod aboard an unfamiliar spacecraft. He's disoriented, strapped down, and once out of his pod, he finds two lifeless crewmates who have been long dead. He doesn't know his name, his mission, or even where he is. The opening minutes of the film set the tone, showing us his isolation and a creeping sense that something has gone catastrophically wrong. The ship's automated systems flicker to life, and he learns only the ship's name, the Hail Mary, and that he is impossibly far from Earth. The film uses this early amnesia to drip feed us information, letting the audience discover the truth alongside him. Grace's fragmented memories begin to surface though, and we see them in short disorienting flashes. There's a classroom, students, a lab, and a woman in a suit speaking to him. The flashes are quick and impressionistic, giving us just enough to understand that he wasn't originally an astronaut, as he was a science teacher back on Earth. As more memories return, Grace then recalls the crisis that set everything in motion. We learn that a mysterious microorganism, later known as astrophage, is draining energy from the sun, threatening to plunge Earth into an extinction-level ice age. The world's governments unite to launch a desperate mission to find a solution. Grace remembers being recruited not because he was a hero, but because he was one of the few scientists who understood the organism's behaviour. So his mission is essentially humanity's last shot at survival. Back in the present, Grace continues to explore the ship, slowly piecing together its layout and purpose. He begins running tests on samples stored aboard, trying to remember what he was meant to do. Eventually, Grace detects an artificial signal coming from a nearby star system. It's rhythmic, structured, and unmistakably intelligent, and therefore begins the realization that we might not be alone in the universe. Grace maneuvers the Hail Mary toward the source of the signal and discovers another spacecraft which is in fact alien, organic looking, and partly damaged. There's tension over what's inside, but after receiving canisters that show where the alien is from in comparison to where they are right now, he soon meets it. Once inside a part of the alien craft, Grace meets Rocky, an engineer from the planet Erid. Rocky communicates through musical tones, clicks, and gestures, and we begin to see how the two learn to understand each other. Their interactions are cautious but curious, and the emotional core of the movie begins to form here, seeing a cross-species friendship built on necessity, intelligence, and mutual respect. Rocky reveals that Erid's star is also dying from the same astrophage infection, so we learn that both of their species are facing extinction. The film does lean into a bit of the scientific problem solving that defined Andy Weir's novel, but it focuses primarily on Grace and Rocky's relationship, collaborating and bonding through trial, error, and ingenuity. And together they begin to discover a potential solution using a predator organism that feeds on astrophage. If they can cultivate it safely, it could restore both of their stars. The scenes here are energetic and hopeful, filled with montage-style experimentation, improvised communication, and the growing bond between the two unlikely partners. And Grace's memory is almost restored after a certain point as well. This brings us to the final act of the film, where it shifts from a story about survival to a story about choice, and in particular who Ryland Grace decides to be. After he and Rocky finally develop a solution to the astrophage crisis, both of them prepare to return home, with Grace going back to Earth and Rocky to Erid. But things don't go as planned. Their ships are damaged, their time is running out, and the mission has pushed both of them to the edge of exhaustion. When Rocky's ship suffers catastrophic damage that threatens his life, and Grace realizes this because of problems with his own ship, he is forced into a moral crossroads. He can return to Earth as the hero who saved humanity, or he can turn around and risk everything to save the one friend who made survival possible in the first place. The film lingers on this decision, with Grace confronting the weight of what he owes, not to humanity, but to someone who trusted him completely. Grace is forced to confront who he truly is, not a chosen hero, but an ordinary man placed in an extraordinary situation. And in fact, we learn through a flashback scene that he was essentially forced to go on the mission himself following his refusal. So this adds to his heroism in the moment where he decides to help Rocky. Grace chooses compassion over duty, deciding to save Rocky, even though it means not going back to Earth. But he also doesn't leave humanity blind. Before committing to the rescue of Rocky, he transmits a complete scientific package back to Earth, including everything they need to solve the astrophage crisis without him. In one long, carefully prepared data burst, he sends the full research logs, the microorganism capable of killing astrophage, along with the conditions it needs to survive, the exact strain that works on the sun's version of the organism, and a step-by-step methodology for cultivating and deploying it. He also includes all of his mission logs, experimental failures, successful trials, and the mathematical models that prove the solution will work. It's essentially the entire blueprint for saving the solar system compressed into a single transmission. Grace knows he won't be there to guide anyone through it, so he makes sure the information is complete, clear, and impossible to misinterpret. And finally, he records a message explaining what he's doing, that he's found the cure, that Earth now has everything it needs, but that he's choosing to turn back to save Rocky, even though it means he'll never come home. It's a quiet, selfless moment that reframes his entire arc in a man who was forced into a mission, choosing to save someone else while still giving humanity its best chance at survival. Grace then succeeds in reaching Rocky's crippled ship, manages to save him, and is soon taken to Erid. Once there, the alien world is harsh but habitable, and Grace becomes a kind of honoured guest, living among beings who owe their survival to him. They've basically built him a part of land where he can live and feel like he's still somewhat within his own environment. He's even teaching again, this time to a class of alien children who appear to be loving it. As a whole, it's a bittersweet ending, and while Earth may never know what happened to him, he has found purpose and connection in an unexpected place. It reflects on the film's central theme of salvation through cooperation, with Grace's journey beginning as a mission to save humanity, but ending as a testament to cross-species friendship and the moral courage to choose empathy over obligation. The ending suggests that heroism isn't about returning home triumphant, as it's about making the choice that preserves life, even at a personal cost. Coming now to some of the differences from Andy Weir's book, it's key to note that while the film captures the emotional core and blockbuster appeal of the best-selling novel, there are a couple of departures mainly done to make this work for the cinematic format. In the novel, Weir spends chapters walking you through the engineering puzzles that Grace and Rocky have to solve, with every calculation, every failed experiment, and a lot more of the mechanical details. The film keeps almost all of those challenges, but it doesn't linger on the science the way the book does. Instead of diving into pages of physics, biology, or ship mechanics, the movie moves briskly through the technical hurdles, giving just enough information for the audience to follow the stakes without getting bogged down by it. It's a risky screenwriting choice because part of the book's charm is its obsessive scientific details. But honestly, even with the streamlined explanations, the movie still runs close to 3 hours. If it tried to replicate the novel's level of detail, you'd probably be looking at a much longer film that risks losing viewers along the way. So Drew Goddard makes a deliberate pivot, spending his time where it matters most, and that is on Grace and Rocky. The film leans into their relationship, letting us watch two isolated beings slowly weave their lives together through trust, problem solving, and genuine companionship. And for a story like this, that's absolutely the right call. The The emotional core of Project Hail Mary isn't the math, it's the bond between these two characters. The science is still there, but the heart takes centre stage. Furthermore, the film dramatically speeds up Grace's recovery from his coma and his ability to function aboard the Hail Mary at the beginning of the film. This is again likely to streamline the runtime and avoid long stretches of internal monologue and scientific setup that work well in prose but slow down a film. In the book, Grace's amnesia unfolds gradually, with extended internal reasoning and puzzle solving. Whereas in the movie, he becomes alert and capable much faster, allowing the plot to move quickly into the mission and the first contact elements. Additionally, there's also more of a condensed communication development with Rocky. The book spends many chapters showing how Grace and Rocky painstakingly learn to communicate. The movie still has a lot of this on show, but it aims to be more efficient, giving us a visually driven communication arc to maintain the pacing. So despite all of these main changes, the core story in Grace's mission, the astrophage crisis, and his bond with Rocky all remains intact. The adaptation is mostly faithful to Weir's spirit while making necessary cinematic adjustments so that the story works better on the big screen. So what are my overall thoughts on the 2026 adaptation of Project Hail Mary? Well, as I stated at the beginning, I think this will go down as one of the best films to come out this year. Directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, filmmakers known for their kinetic energy and tonal precision, the film feels like a natural evolution of their style, being visually bold, emotionally grounded, and surprisingly patient when it needs to be. At the centre of it all is Ryan Gosling's performance, playing Grace with a mix of bewildered vulnerability and quiet determination that makes the character instantly sympathetic. As his memories return, the film slowly reveals the scale of his mission, and while the setup of it could have easily drifted into melodrama, the film handles it with a refreshing sense of clarity and restraint. What really elevates Project Hail Mary is how it balances its hard science backbone with a deeply human story and light-hearted relationship. The screenplay by Drew Goddard, who previously adapted The Martian, gives us a film that is sharp, accessible, and often surprisingly funny. The film never talks down to the audience, but it also never gets too lost in its own scientific jargon. Instead, it uses science as a narrative engine, a way to reveal character, a way to form connection, and then a way to escalate the tension at the centre. The pacing is also deliberate, especially in the first act, but that slow burn pays off once the film begins to reveal its structure. The emotional core of the movie is then handled with sincerity and warmth, giving the film a beating heart that many modern sci-fi epics tends to lack. And visually, the film is of course stunning. Cinematographer Greg Fraser, who has become one of the defining visual voices of modern sci-fi, brings a sense of scale and texture that makes Grace's ship feel both claustrophobic and homely. The lighting, the production design, the way the camera lingers on small details inside the craft contributes to a tactile sense of realism too. The space sequences are equally impressive, blending practical effects with well-done CGI to create environments that feel cinematically grand. And Daniel Pemberton's score adds another layer of emotional resonance, shifting between eerie minimalism and swelling orchestral passages that underline the film's themes of isolation, discovery, and hope. Add on the small but effective supporting cast, including Sandra Hüller, and they enrich the film through flashback sequences that gradually fill in the gaps of Grace's past. These scenes are essential as they give the story the emotional stakes beyond the survival of Earth, grounding the narrative in personal relationships and moral dilemmas. By the time Project Hail Mary reaches its final act, it becomes clear that it isn't just a story about saving Earth, as it's a story about connections, sacrifice, and the unexpected bonds that define us. The ending is both triumphant and bittersweet, offering a sense of closure that feels earned without being overly tidy. And it's the kind of finale that lingers with you, not because of its spectacle, but because of its emotional honesty. So overall, I think that Project Hail Mary is a triumph of modern sci-fi filmmaking. It's smart, heartfelt, visually arresting, and anchored by a great Ryan Gosling performance. It's a film that respects its audience, embraces its genre, and delivers a story that feels both epic in scale and personal. For fans of both the book and thoughtful, character-driven science fiction, then this is absolutely one worth seeing on the biggest screen possible. But that was my breakdown and review of the Project Hail Mary movie. If you've already seen the film, then let me know down below in the comments section what you thought of it, and also if you're a fan of the book, let me know if you think the film captures the story well on the big screen. For much more videos and breakdowns, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.